The highest court in India has spoken and ruled the controversial biometric identity program is constitutional. On September 26, the Supreme Court ruled the Aadhaar scheme did not break privacy laws, but they did limit the scope of the program. The court said the program couldn't be required for bank accounts, mobile connections, or school admissions. The biometric ID program is considered the world's largest, with 1 billion registered users in India. In order for residents to access a range of welfare and social services, they have to register with the government, who then stores their names, gender, date of birth, fingerprints, iris scans, and photos in the database. Residents also receive a 12-digit number and registration card. While the system is supposedly voluntary, residents reportedly have to participate in order to access the crucial services, making it nearly impossible to opt out. Meanwhile, critics argue one of the biggest issues with the program is the vulnerability of sensitive information. For Global One, I'm Juliet Vara.
Heavy rains in Iowa may be the cause for a train derailment. 37 of the train's 95 cars derailed. Police say nobody was hurt and no hazardous materials leaked into a nearby river. Officials say the past week of heavy rains contributed to this crash. The train was on its way to Nebraska from Minnesota carrying sand and soybean oil. Some of the sand spilled into the river. 20 of the derailed cars fell into the river and the bridge beneath the train was destroyed.
County firefighters are still working to contain a wildfire that is burning more than 3,000 acres right now.
Yeah, officials say the Charlie fire was reported around 3 o'clock yesterday in Castaic. Started as a 3-acre fire but quickly grew in the 96-degree heat and 19-mile-an-hour winds. Fire crews battling the fire from the ground and from above, as you see. Nearby homes have been ordered to evacuate.
It is very scary because, there's a lot of fires out here all the time. A lot of people lose their homes.
Cause of the fire under investigation. Fire is currently only 10% contained. Well, take a look at this video here. Path of destruction in parts of Canada. Touchdown yesterday in Ottawa, damaging a number of homes you'll see here. At least 14 people injured in Ottawa, and there are concerns that people could have been trapped in some of those damaged structures. More than 16,000 customers also left without power.
The traffic at kilometer 42 of Jalan Simpang Pulai, Cameron Highlands was brought to a standstill on Wednesday due to a gushing mudslide. As of 6:30 p.m., half of the road was still closed as the mud was still flowing even though the rain had stopped. Cameron Highlands Fire and Rescue Services Department Chief Mohammad Hilmi Kashfi said the incident started at about 2:45 p.m. after heavy rain that began around noon. The concrete retaining wall broke and sent a river of mud water down the hill. No casualties have been reported so far.
It's the second super typhoon to hit the Asian coast in under 2 weeks, and Super Typhoon Trami appears to be headed towards Japan, officials said. A European astronaut posted photos on Twitter of the Category 5 typhoon from the International Space Station, where he wrote, "Staring down the eye of yet another fierce storm, Category 5 Super Typhoon Trami is unstoppable and headed for Japan and Taiwan. Be safe down there." Current forecasts reportedly predict the typhoon will impact northern and central Taiwan, as well as Japan's Ryukyu Islands. A CNN meteorologist said the storm had currently stalled. AccuWeather reported the storm is slow moving, which will give communities time to prepare and evacuate a system that could produce life-threatening conditions. Southeast Asia is still reeling from Super Typhoon Mangkhut that left a swath of destruction 2 weeks ago, particularly in the Philippines, where more than 100 people were killed. This typhoon is reportedly expected to make landfall in the southern Ryukyu Islands as soon as Friday. For Global One, I'm Juliet Vara.
It's one of the highest cities in the world. La Paz is nestled in the Andean tropical mountain chain. A short drive, followed by perhaps a longer walk from the city, and you can be standing under snow-capped peaks. Not so long ago, people skied on these slopes. Bolivia's only ski resort was once the highest in the world at more than 5,400 meters above sea level. Nowadays, it's a sad relic of the après-ski lifestyle some Bolivians enjoyed on this once mighty glacier, which has melted faster than scientists had predicted. Under a fresh dusting of snow, these two ski lodges are the only reminders of what used to be. Scientists say the ice here started to melt in the mid-1980s. The glacier vanished in 2009. But residents of La Paz and its twin city, El Alto, face a more pressing problem than the loss of a leisure activity. While the higher peaks hold on to their ice for now, the thaw is putting freshwater supplies at risk.
During the last decade, basically, when we have experienced all this glacier retreat, what is happening is that we have more water available because the glaciers are melting. And this is going to last some years, I don't know, 10, 15 years more maybe, depends on how the conditions are. But later, we won't have any other source of water.
In 2016, La Paz was hit by a major drought as reservoirs ran dry. This year, the water supply and weather is being carefully monitored.
The problem with climate change and climate variability is that you don't know really if you will have the same amount of rainfall every year. So planning for a big dam, for example, might be a mistake. So the idea maybe now is to build small dams, and we need really a contingency plan.
Bolivians here may have the white peaks for a little longer, but they'll have to plan for a drier future without them.
Home and business owners in the northwest suburbs have a lot of cleaning up to do this morning from last night's severe storms that led to some close calls.
CBS 2's Lauren Victory is live in Huntley with a look at some of that damage. Lauren, good morning.
Hi there, Aaron and Marissa. Well, village leaders from Huntley are communicating via Facebook this morning, asking homeowners to stay patient because it might take a while to clean everything up around here. Nobody was hurt last night, but some of these trees came pretty close. Check out this view of a tree from inside a home on 2nd and Church. Drywall and insulation left hanging because of a sharp branch. It pierced the roof of a bedroom, stopping 2 feet from the mattress where the homeowner said he was folding clothes earlier that night. Our cameras spotted busted bark all over this northwest suburb. This morning, residents are advised to call private contractors to help with cleanup because village crews might be overwhelmed. Meantime, ComEd is making progress, but reporting just under 800 customers still without power just in Huntley alone. Workers at a mobile mart on Route 57 lost electricity last night. One describes the immediate aftermath of this severe storm.
We had trash cans that were wound up over by the diesel pump. All of the hoses flew off of the holders. The one girl that came in, she was really scared because she had lost her driver's side and her passenger side window, and she had a child in it.
Some scary moments for sure, but again, nobody was hurt. Huntley village leaders do have some advice for anybody anywhere dealing with storm cleanup. Beware of shady repair people who might be trying to solicit your business.
Now, new Pope Francis is speaking out again about the sex abuse scandal in the Catholic Church, this time referring to it as monstrous.
The comments came during the pontiff's flight back to the Vatican after a 4-day trip to the Baltic states. CBS 4's Seth Doan reports from Rome.
There are accusations against the church. We all know that. We know the statistics. I will not repeat them, the pontiff said. Then he specifically addressed the Pennsylvania grand jury report, which found more than 300 predator priests and 1,000+ victims of clerical sex abuse. Look at the numbers, Pope Francis said, and you will see that when the church began to become aware of this, then we gave it our all to stop it. But he spoke just hours after another scathing study was released, this one by the Catholic Church in Germany. It found more than 3,600 minors were abused by more than 1,600 clerics in Germany over a nearly 70-year period. Researchers found multiple cases of abuse were more common than one-off incidents. The church reviews were initiated in just about 34% of sex abuse cases, and a quarter of those ended with no sanctions being imposed. We asked German Bishop Stefan Ackermann, who helped commission the report, if the Catholic Church has the capacity to monitor itself. This study and recent experiences prove that we cannot do this alone, he said. We need outside help, including from the state.
Our CBS News producer Ana Matrango was on that papal flight, and she said that despite direct questions from journalists about sex abuse, the Pope first wanted to talk about his trip. And it was not until nearly 40 minutes into the press conference that he returned to address the issue.
Now to a crime alert. Worshippers at a San Diego church stunned to find obscene graffiti all over their church. It happened overnight in the Alta Vista neighborhood east of National City. And as 10 News reporter Amanda Brandeis learned, the church wasn't the only target.
Some of the graffiti is too graphic for us to put on television, but it's all disturbing. Like right here on these steps where it says, "Praise the devil."
For those who come here every Sunday, Church of Christ is a safe place.
I was completely shocked.
One that welcomes outsiders with open arms.
Really ashamed that someone would do this to a building.
Harold, who didn't want to give his last name, worships here. He can't grasp why anyone would do this, especially to a church.
The first time that this has happened to our building, we've been blessed to, that is the first time.
Some of the graffiti is a profanity-laced smear against President Trump and NCPD, which could refer to National City Police. Whoever did it left this clue behind, a latex glove with blue spray paint. Down the street, we found similar graffiti on a fence, and some people on social media reported it happened to cars. San Diego police is investigating.
Well, it's impossible for me to hate someone that does this, but I guess all of us are bothered by it when it does happen, and what else can you do other than hope it don't happen again?
While he likely won't ever understand why this happened, Harold knows it won't stop them from coming back and worshiping.
This is a bathroom in Moria Camp. There's a lavatory for every 72 people, and the water doesn't always run. The streets between the tents and housing units smell of fetid wastewater. This Iranian woman shares a tent with an Afghan family and gives the children lessons in Farsi, since there is no education for some 3,000 children in the camp. The government provides one doctor for Moria's 9,000 residents, but Doctors Without Borders have set up a surgery outside the camp for women and children. The government could move sick and vulnerable populations off the island, but this year hasn't done so.
We are most of them tumors, urinary catheters, cardiac problems, very severe breathing problems, a lot of kind of medical very severe pathologists who are here even when they have some months ago a medical report from the hospital telling that for medical reasons they need to be moved urgent to Athens.
In the tent city beside the official camp, the aid group Movement on the Ground has built terracing and drainage and provided Wi-Fi and electricity. But new arrivals are spilling beyond this into the olive groves. Authorities can provide them with only a tarpaulin and a rope. About 20,000 asylum applicants have arrived on Greek shores this year. All of them are forced to remain on East Aegean islands while their applications are processed. At the moment, new arrivals are looking at waiting periods of 14 months before their first interview. Like others here, this Afghan family has stripped olive trees to cook. Forced to forage, refugees create problems for local farmers. One of them shows me his carpentry workshop, looted and burned. His house was stripped of plywood refugees use for shelter. He no longer picks the olives that used to give him half his income.
I come every day. I catch them inside. I call the police. There is nothing they can do. Greece cannot protect us. Greece is like a vineyard without a fence.
But the refugees don't want this any more than he does. Ali Sajjad is here because the Taliban nearly killed him. He just wants to finish his degree in psychology.
This country don't owe us anything. You know, we don't want hot water. We don't want anything. We don't want their food. We just want to let us leave. If I could leave this camp, to be okay. You know, if I could find a job, if I could rent a house, okay, no problem. Because what living on the jungle with scorpions.
Yet this is the foreseeable future for Ali and 11,000 refugees on the island. John Saropoulos, Al Jazeera, Lesbos.
هاي ما هو مدرسة، ما فيها لا صفوف ولا مقاعد ولا شيء، قاعدين على الأرض.
وهون المدرسة يعني أغلب المنظمات عم تبعد عنا بسبب قربها على منطقة النزاع، ودائما هي في خوف من القصف، في خوف من الوضع.
This is Samira and 3-year-old Omar. They are twins. They both have cholera.
At first, the kids were playing in dirty places. Then they got diarrhea. And because the children are playing together, it goes from one to the other.
The family are refugees from Somalia and live in this makeshift space in Aden with no sanitary facilities. The children spend their time outside playing with other neighborhood kids in bare feet. Just down the alley, 4-year-old Abdul Reza also has cholera. This neighborhood registers the highest number of cholera cases in all of Aden. Every day, health advisor Gamel Abdu Mohammed Abu Bakr goes around to educate mothers about proper protective measures such as hygiene.
We enter people's houses to educate them about hygiene and to tell them if there's a case of diarrhea, they have to come to the hospital to be cured. If you keep them an hour or two at home, this hour may be fatal for him. An hour leads to death. Half an hour can lead to death.
The cholera ward at Al Sadaka Hospital has seen an increase in patients within the last month.
In August, it was only 3-4 cases a day, but yesterday it was 20 cases just in the morning. The main problem is the lack of water. Water is not available. Even we are suffering from that at home. Water is very rare. We get water only a few hours a day.
More than 1 million people had cholera between 2016 and 2018. Nearly 2,400 of them died, a far cry from the rough annual count of 17,500 registered with the disease prior to the war.
According to the United Nations, 275,000 people were vaccinated against cholera earlier this year in Aden alone. Yet the rate at which people are being infected is increasing. As well, new cholera cases are being seen in areas previously unaffected. Challenging the situation even further is the deplorable state of the healthcare facilities across the country, which too have become victims of the fighting.
In June, a brand new cholera treatment center run by Doctors Without Borders was hit by an airstrike. A struggling economy has forced many hospitals to close around the country or work on bare minimum, such as this children's cancer ward.
We have a shortage of nurses. We haven't enough doctors. The war, it will affect all the aspects of the life. The price of everything here, because of this crisis, is increasing too much.
Most patients are not able to finish their chemotherapy treatment due to the unaffordability of it or simple access to it.
You come here and there is no medicine. There are no needles. You've seen how dirty this place is. The smell, the place stinks. They're not even able to repair the lift. The NGOs give money, but we don't see where that money is going. It doesn't reach us.
The good news is that care and awareness for cholera is improving across Yemen, but healthcare in general has become one of the most detrimental casualties of this war.
While the majority is cured of cholera with proper medical attention, without an improvement to their living environment, many are susceptible to catching the disease again. And with the heavy rains of winter on its way, the spread of cholera is likely to be more rampant.
Another arrival at a clinic in northern Yemen. Bassam Mohammed Hassan is 2 years old, but malnutrition means he's in a critical condition. Starvation is threatening families who are among the poorest in the Middle East, those least capable of surviving. Bassam's grandmother is understandably distraught.
We don't have money to transport him for the treatment he can only get in Sana'a. We're in such a dilemma. Those who gave us money before can't do so anymore. No one can keep giving in this situation. We don't have any help from any side in this war, and we don't have anything.
Bassam may be 2, but he weighs less than 5 kilos. That's 10 pounds. The capital, Sana'a, where specialist care and medicine may give him a better chance, might as well be a world away. Even though the distance from this clinic at Aslam in Hajjah province is around 100 kilometers. Fighting on the supply line to Sana'a from the Red Sea port of Hodeidah, which, like the capital, is in control of the Houthi rebels, is relentless. But UAE-trained government forces are still pushing to take away Houthi control of Hodeidah. Now, with the level of fighting as it stands, there are worries about how long it will take to open up a humanitarian corridor between Sana'a and Hodeidah. The assurance came after the UN General Assembly on Monday heard a clamour of warnings that time is running out if a full-scale famine is to be avoided. For the first time, the parents of a malnutrition victim, 3-year-old Zaifa Zakaf, have spoken of their daughter's death. It was last week after she went to the same clinic as Bassam Mohammed Hassan in Hajjah province. Her father, like the parents of Bassam, says he had no money to take his daughter to get better treatment elsewhere. And Zaifa's mother is worried about her other children's chances of survival. She's inconsolable.
My daughter had malnutrition and her condition was so bad that you could count the ribs in her chest. Her feet were swollen, but on the rest of her body you could see all of her bones. The swollen areas grew bigger, but hours before her death, the swelling disappeared and she returned to skin and bone.
Food aid is now arriving in this remote area. And staff in the clinic who tried against the odds to save Zaifa are now doing what they can to save little Bassam. Andrew Simmons, Al Jazeera.
The remaining members of the Iran nuclear deal have reaffirmed their commitment to move forward with the agreement. The UK, China, France, Germany, Russia, and Iran held a joint meeting in New York on Monday ahead of the UN General Assembly. Part of the conversation was centered around creating a new payment system with Iran in an attempt to avoid US sanctions against the country. The system would create a legal entity to facilitate payments with Iran. That workaround would let oil companies and other businesses continue trading with Iran while mostly steering clear of the US. It's not totally clear how the new system would work. The EU's foreign policy chief said in a statement that experts would discuss the details more extensively in coming days. The Chinese government is not going to allow a US Navy warship to dock in Hong Kong. Neither the US nor China gave a specific reason for why the USS Wasp and its more than 1,000 sailors were denied a port visit in October. But Beijing's decision follows the Trump administration sanctioning one of China's military units and its director over its purchases of Russian fighter planes and missile equipment. A spokesman for China's foreign ministry said the government approves visits on a case-by-case basis. CNN reports China last refused a visit in 2016 when it would not allow the USS John C. Stennis aircraft carrier to visit Hong Kong.
And while in New York, President Moon gave an interview to cable news giant Fox News, in which he said both South and North Korea and the United States have the same idea when it comes to ending the Korean War. And as for the North's denuclearization, he said this latest push is different from those of the past. Shin Se-min reports.
Speaking to Fox News, President Moon Jae-in discussed the outcomes of diplomacy with North Korea. The president said the regime will in fact give up its nuclear weapons because the promise to do so comes from the very top of the regime's chain of command. He said that although many are skeptical about whether North Korea really will follow through, the latest agreements, including the one between leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump, are different from those of the past. President Moon also spoke for Kim, whose promises, he said, to allow outside inspections of key nuclear test sites and to dismantle facilities are in sync with the U.S. policy of complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization, or CVID. The president also alluded to what the corresponding measures Pyongyang wants from Washington might be. He said they could be a formal declaration of ending the Korean War or humanitarian aid of some sort, maybe non-political exchanges like cultural networking or even setting up a U.S. liaison office in Pyongyang. And touching upon South Korea's ironclad alliance with Washington, the president added that officially ending the Korean War would not hamper the allies' strong connection. And speaking with a group of some 200 opinion leaders with close links to Korea issues, the president also shared his take on diplomacy with the North. He explained Kim Jong-un's point of view as expressed in their latest meeting in Pyongyang.
북한이 속임수를 쓰거나 또는 시간 벌기를 해서 도대체 북한이 얻을 수 있는 것이 뭐가 있겠는가? 만약에 그럴 경우에 미국이 강력하게 보복을 하게 될 텐데 그 보복을 북한이 어떻게 감당할 수 있겠는가? 그러니 이번에야말로 북한의 진정성을 한번 믿어달라.
The president's message here in New York is clear that the major regional players like the two Koreas and the U.S. have one clear goal in mind: opening up the era of everlasting peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula as a team by seeing through the denuclearization of North Korea and ending the decades-long Korean War. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, New York.
When Hurricane Florence hit Lumberton, North Carolina, Diane Turner and her family couldn't sleep for days.
Because I've never had insomnia, but I didn't sleep for several days there, several nights. My husband didn't sleep in bed that night. He said, we can't, those trees are likely to fall. And the wind was fierce.
In the middle of the night, a tree came crashing down.
It sounded like a big boom.
They went out in the morning to find a pretty big tree across the yard. Diane couldn't do anything about it on her own. She's been taking care of her 90-year-old mother-in-law, who had to be evacuated from her nursing home. They didn't know what to do about the tree. Then, Operation Blessing showed up. We got right to work cutting the tree apart into manageable pieces to be hauled off. I grabbed one of the saws myself. Diane was grateful not only for the help we gave her, but for what we've been doing for thousands of hurricane victims in North Carolina.
I've seen Jesus in the work that y'all are doing, and God's hand on you there at East Lumberton Baptist Church. I see it on the TV or the Facebook, and that y'all would come this distance to do something for people that you don't even know speaks well of all of you.
Once we took care of the tree at Diane's, the crew packed up and got ready for the next job. Before we left, we prayed with Diane and her mother-in-law.
I will pray for all of you, because it's a good thing you're doing. Thank you with all our hearts. Thank you for everything you've done.